Today we're going to be looking at how we can take geometric shapes and use our shape builder tool to create more complicated shapes. So we're going to use very basic shapes to start with, circles, squares, and we're going to build them up to create our overall look. This helps create cleaner graphics, specifically when dealing with things that might be difficult to trace properly. Now we're going to use very basic shapes today to make this, but you can use this on even more and more complicated things as you go. So we're going to start right here on the diamond shape, so have that where you can see it really well. We're going to need our shape tools pretty regularly today, so I would grab this panel and I would click this little bar to the right to pop that out so you can see that panel follow you around. We're going to start with our ellipse tool. L is the shortcut. And we're going to make sure we're on our work area layer. The first thing I'm going to do is draw out a very tall oval like this. Now, I don't want it to have a fill necessarily, and the stroke line to make things easier for myself needs to be fairly thin. So I would make this a 0.25 stroke just so you can see this very well. Now, once I have my oval shape, I'm going to rotate this oval shape, and I'm going to attempt to match the line. So the line that I see right here is a very subtle curve. I want this line to match this line. Now I may have to make this shape bigger to really match that out properly. So kind of go through that and see what you need to make that match that line. So once you have the oval, every other line on this diamond is this exact same shape. We just need to copy and paste. But copying and pasting is going to give me a shape that's the same size, same angle. So I'm going to use a different option. I'm going to go up to Object, Transform, Reflect. And right here it's going to give me an option for horizontal or vertical, depending on what I'm looking to do. And it gives me an option to just hit OK, and it'll flip my one shape, or copy, and it'll rotate that shape and make a new one at the same time. So either one of these right now is fine. I'm going to click on vertical and hit copy. And you see it makes another oval for me. I can drag this to the left and match out that left line. Now once I have these two, the bottom two are the exact same. I just need to flip both shapes. So I'm going to grab both shapes, Object, Transform, Reflect, and this time I'm going to click horizontal, and then I'm going to hit copy. Now it's very easy to mess up and click on the white space right here and not select this. Make sure you're clicking on the line when you move it. If you hold shift as you move it down, it'll stay in a straight line. So that gives me a diamond shape in the center of all of these shapes, right? So now I want to cut this out. I want just the diamond. First, I'm going to select all four shapes. I'm just going to click, hold, drag over top to select them all. Shift M is my shortcut to get my shape builder tool, and you see this little grid system start popping up. Now, if I were to click, hold, and drag through these shapes, it's going to combine these all into one shape. That's not what I want. What I want to do is I want to click one time in the dead center of this. When I click right here on this diamond, pop, nothing's going to happen. If I click off and then come back in and grab that line, I can now see my diamond shape is separate from the rest. I can now move this down to match the template below. And I can change the color of this. This is my new diamond shape. So change the color of that to whatever you want it to be. Feel free to experiment. So the diamond shape is a little complicated in the fact that we have to line things up properly, but it's really just one shape over and over again. What happens when we have more complicated shapes or different shapes? So let's go to the heart here. We need to look at the actual lines and figure out what shapes make this up. So it's not hard to guess, but we have two circles up here at the top. So I'm going to start with that. Get your ellipse tool. L is the shortcut. I'm going to click in the middle of this area. When I start clicking, I'm going to hold Shift and Alt or Option to kind of make my circle. And I'm going to make a fairly large circle here. Again, the stroke needs to be there with no fill. I'm going to try to match this up as best I can. Doesn't have to be perfect. I would recommend going like one mouse click to the right on this one, making sure that it's a little overlapped in the middle. When I have one, I'll hold Alt or Option to make the next one. So that way they're a little overlapped. I'm going to see that this continues to kind of curve in this way. So I'm going to duplicate that same circle down. I want to keep it in a straight line with that previous one. And I'm just going to drag down on that bottom piece a little bit. I'll duplicate that over to the left, kind of lining that up, making sure that I'm even on this left side as best I can. Now there is no such thing as perfect, so if it's a little off in the end, that's perfectly fine. I get it. Now once I have these, I need to look at this bottom shape and I need to kind of determine what goes where here. So I see that it starts to curve in a little bit before it starts curving back down. So there are really two shapes here. So I'm going to duplicate this to create another oval. This one I'm going to rotate a bit. So I'm going to grab one of the corners, rotate it. I'm not making much of a curve here, it's just a little bit, but the real trick is making sure that these lines overlap each other almost perfectly. So if I zoom in, you see that they're overlapping and touching each other just right. Once I have that first one, I will duplicate that down, and I will create that second curve moving downwards. So this becomes a little bit of a fight, kind of figuring out where these shapes need to be, how long they need to be, how much stretch you need, and if they're overlapped properly. Because the overlapping really is key on this. If it's not overlapped, it's not going to link together when we grab our shape builder tool. So perfection not required. Get it fairly close. I'll be happy with it. So now once I have these two ovals on the left side, I need to duplicate them to the right. They're the same thing to make this line. So I'm going to go to Object, Transform again, Reflect. Make sure you have the vertical option selected when you hit copy. And then I'm just going to drag that over to the right, holding shift, matching up to that line. So again, this looks like a hot mess. I hear you. A lot of these things tend to look like this at a quick draw. It's just experimentation and understanding your lines, right? Drawing it with the pen tool is acceptable, but keeping things symmetrical is really the goal here. So I'm going to select all of these shapes. So right here, it's a little difficult to see that dashed pattern of the heart. So I'll shrink down my stroke on this again to that 0.25 so I can see what I was doing here. Shift M to get your shape builder tool. And you're looking to merge all of these shapes that make up your heart. So it's going to take a little bit of figuring out what shapes belong with what. Feel free to let go of your mouse and kind of breathe for a second if need be. So right here, I'll let go. And then I'll come back in and keep drawing to get the rest of my shapes. It can be a bit of a fight. Go through when all shapes are connected, including this little one. I'll let go, and that's going to be my heart. All right, once you have your heart, grab it. You can copy and paste it down if you would like, or you can just drag it holding Alt or Option, and that will be your heart symbol. Feel free to change that color, make it look however you want it to look. Good. Now moving over to our club symbol. Again, we have to identify the shapes that make this up. They're all circles except for one flat line at the bottom. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm going to start making my circles. Again, I'm going to keep it as a stroke with no fill so I can see it well. Once I have one circle, I can hold Alt or Option to kind of make out the other circles. I notice they get a little smaller as they move down. You want to keep things as symmetrical as you can along the way. Moving down, this outside part of this leg is just another circle. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. Same's true over here. And there is a little bit of a curve on each corner at the bottom here, but I'm just going to flatten that out by making one rectangle that'll go over the top. Make sure it goes all the way across like that. Goes into those circles on both sides. So simple enough. 5 circles, 1 square. I'll select those, Shift M, and I'll put together what I want it to be. So it's all about kind of playing with these shapes and lining them up the way they should be. So that's the goal. When I have that, I'll grab that shape, duplicate it down, change its color. Now, this can be a little complicated to get used to, but most logos are made in some way like this to kind of keep things clean, symmetrical, and along the way. So what I want you to do next is experiment with the spade. The spade is a little more complicated. I've given you options down here to see the shapes that you should be making. See if you can make this spade shape the same way. Good luck with it. Once you're done with the spade, let's go over to the right hand side, and I'm going to challenge you today. We're going to make icons, basic icons that you see everywhere like email, power, home. But we're going to make them using that shape builder tool and our geometric shapes. These aren't complicated to make, and they can look like however you want them to look like. What does the text icon look like to you? And you figure out the shapes that go into making that. So I'm going to do a couple of these, and then I'm just going to kind of let you go at it. So the power option. The power symbol we've all seen. It's very basic. It's two circles and a rectangle, really. So I'm going to make my first circle holding Shift and Alt like this. I'm going to copy that, Command C and Shift Command V. I'm going to shrink that down. Now, as I do that, it makes a second circle for me. Shift M, I can click on that middle area and I can kind of cut that out. That's my start, okay? Next, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and I'm going to make a rectangle right here at the top. Now, with my rectangle here at the top, I am going to cut out this top area. So Shift M, I'm just going to grab all three of these, dragging through it to grab those, click off, click back on it, hit delete. Then I'm going to grab my rectangle tool to make one single rectangle right here, and I will have my power button all of a sudden. We've all seen that symbol, right? You know what the power button looks like. You just might have to track it in your head real quick. What does the power symbol look like, right? So there's a bunch of different ways to kind of play with this. So the text icon, to me, looks like a thought bubble, right? That's what most of them come out looking like. So I'm going to make a rectangle right here, and I'll round the corners a little bit so it gives that look. And then what I really need to make is just two circles. So I'm going to make one circle here like this, and I'll change these to strokes real quick so you can see it. I'll make one circle here real quick. I'll duplicate that circle and move it over to the right so it looks like this. With those shapes selected, Shift M, and I'll grab in all of the things that make that icon to me. I'll delete the things I don't need. To me, that is a text symbol, right? So I want you to make these other ones. I want you to make the email symbol. What does an email symbol look like to you? What does the home symbol look like? What does the volume up icon look like? Or music? If I was to indicate that this is music with a single icon, what would that look like? And what shapes go into making that? Everybody should have their own unique icons. We all basically understand what these icons look like, but it's up to you to do your version of them instead of doing the same version that everybody has. So if you've got a different idea for what the home might look like, make your version of it. So what have we done today? We've looked at how we can make more complicated shapes out of very basic shapes to start with. There is a lot that can be done with this, but it's up to you to experiment along the way and figure out how you can make your own perfect shapes using basic shapes. So that's your daily dose of design. If you found this helpful in any way, shape, or form, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That always helps me out and it helps you continue building your creative toolbox. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.